Now, what are the weaknesses of structured interviews? First of all, the most important aspect for which structured interview schedules in quantitative research are criticized is that they can be extremely time consuming if a sample group is very large. For example, you have to prepare for, say, 2021 census. The preparation has already started. So you need a massive preparatory work. So the weaknesses are that if the sample is too large, it is extremely time consuming. If your interview schedule is long, then it's going to take a lot of time. For comparison, say for example in census, you have to finish census in those 10 days throughout the country. That means lakhs of people are there for interviewing, because then only the comparability will remain. And the researcher and their representative, they need to be present for each structured interview. It is very important that interpersonal interaction is very important between interviewer and interviewee. Second weakness is that the quality and convenience of information is vastly dependent on quality of questions asked. So that if your interviewer has enumerators bias or is not able to get information from interviewee, then the whole exercise either fails or partially fails. Now, you can't change the questions. They must all stay the same. There is an extensive amount of pre-planning is necessary when you have interview methods. Interview schedule has to be prepared. It has to be copied. It has to be translated. If the language of interviewees or the population is different, then it needs to be translated. You have to select the interviewers who know the language of interviewee and also orient them and guide them. And initially you have to do the pilot with the principal investigator, or the expert has to be with the interviewer to at the time of pilot, so that to see to it that interview schedule is administered properly. The format of questionnaire design makes it tricky for researcher to examine intricate issues and opinions, because you may get answers, say, in yes or no, or you may get a one sentence or a one word response. Now, the interviewer has to be smart enough to extricate more information. If it is not possible, then you will have to have a case studies, in-depth interviews, guided interviews, and focus group discussion. You will have to supplement your research with that. Even when open-ended questions are used, the depth of answers the respondent can provide often are more limited with almost any other method, because in the structured interviews you have that kind of a limitation. So when it comes to, say, just a trend in fashion or a market research, it's okay. But when it comes to going into sociological, anthropological, consumer analysis in economics, or political science, or ethnographic researches, epidemiological researches, in that we need a far more nuanced understanding. So main criticism of quantitative research in that interview schedule is that it lacks the nuanced understanding of the behavior or of the problem or the issue. Now, how reliable are structured interviews if they are done with the interview schedule? First of all, I must say that this method is very reliable. An interview can be easily repeated. For example, if you guide your interviewers, if your research team is properly groomed, properly mentored, orientations are given, then it is possible to get really good results. Interviews can be used to collect facts, for example, information about people's place of work, their age, their personal profile in terms of education, career. But such questions are usually no more than opening items which precede the main substance of the research area. The bulk of interview questions seek to elicit information about attitudes, about opinions, about perspectives, the meanings of the issue that you are examining, how people perceive it, how do they respond. The very stuff of much, say, psychology, ethnography, anthropology, sociology, in that it is very important to understand the narrative, and also critical reflection and the analysis has to come out, which would guide you to come up with the policy implications. The interviews are widely used because they are powerful means of both obtaining information and also gaining insight. So it is not only that you are getting numbers and percentages, but you are also getting an insight into the problem area. Uh, we use them because they give us an idea of what makes people tick, of the personality, of the motivations of interviewee. It is very important to focus on the ethical dilemma or the processual dimensions of administering interview schedules. First of all, your trust of respondents is very important to conduct any research with the help of interview schedule. Unless the respondent trusts you, like if you go, if the information, you ask the information about number of children that that family has, and if the respondent thinks that you are a family, you are going to sterilize, forcibly sterilize them, they will give wrong answer. They said there are no children in the family. But if they know that you have come for to provide facilities like pulse polio or the vaccination, and which they about which they are aware, they will give you correct information that yes, there are two infants in the family. So trust is very important. They also, interview respondents should also feel that you are not going to abuse their trust. Whatever information they share is not going to be used for malified intention. Then that kind of response you have to create. Many times we go for a research in a tribal area or in a rural area to understand the health profile or reproductive health issues. Then immediately one person would shout and say, "Ha, nasbandi wale aa gaye. These are the people who are going to sterilize it." Everyone in the village start running. I remember during 80s and 90s, I personally experienced it, that you go there to get the information on reproductive health or family welfare issues, and they would just run away because they think that you will harm them. Informed consent is very important. Though in the form, if they are able to write, you have to prepare the consent form. Those who are not able to write and read, you have to verbally tell them about what the research is about and take their thumb impression on the informed consent form. No respondent should be forced to participate in the interview in the interview, because voluntary participation is very important. You have to inform, have a dialogue, establish rapport with the community and the person concerned, and voluntarily that person should participate in the interview. You have to promise the respondent about the confidentiality, that none of the matters, like sensitive matters like what is your income, if they think that you will give this information to the income tax and that person will be harmed, or the question about illness, say for example, if somebody has a diabetes and the insurance company, if they think that you are going to give this information to insurance company, that person would be very much angry with you. Or even the question of reproductive health, if somebody has HIV, AIDS or STD or any other reproductive health problem, and if that information is shared with you, then you have to promise confidentiality. Another thing, that while conducting the interview, if the person feels hesitant to speak, like when we were conducting interview, we had a huge interview schedule of 165 questions. It was a multi-centric research project of University Grants Commission in 8 states of India about status of girl children. And when we were asking questions to these girls in school, the teachers were standing and girls felt hesitant. They did not reply. When we tried to interview them in their home, everyone in the family was watching them. So questions regarding menstruation, questions regarding what do they feel about their adolescence, they were hesitant to speak. So visual privacy, when somebody else is standing there, even if they are at a distance, but that visual, that image of that person or that person is visible, then if the respondent feels hesitant, then you have to provide complete privacy. Auditory privacy, if they are giving you information and others are listening to it, then also sometimes it creates a problem. You have to even take their permission before taking their photograph, or before, unless they give you permission to photograph them, you can't do that. If you are taping or video recording the interview, you need to take prior permission, and without their consent, you can't go ahead. Information in unidentifiable style is also very important, because if the privacy is very important, if you are interviewing a person, that person should not be identified. You can write case number 1, 2, 3, ABC, change a name. It is very important to ensure security and privacy and confidentiality of the respondent. Every interviewer has to be culturally sensitive. What kind of, if you are interviewing people in a public place, you have to follow the dress code, the mannerism. If you are interviewing people in the community, you have to be courteous. The cultural sensitivity is very important. How you greet a person, how you deal with the other family members of people, how, or the neighbors, with everyone you should be acceptable in terms of the way you greet a person, the way you sit. If you are entering someone's houses in India, you don't, or you remove your chappals or shoes outside and then you enter. If you see any religious, the image of God in this thing, you see to it that nothing, it doesn't hurt their sensibility. If you are in India, you would say namaste. If you are meeting youngsters, you would say hello. Or the way you dress up, it should not be unacceptable to the respondent or the community. So this is in a nutshell the way interview schedules are prepared, they are administered, and the ethical guidelines for interview schedules also need to be respected. Thank you very much.